Hey, how are you doing? It appears that my wife has asked me to do this a couple times, and I guess there was a couple comments on some videos or whatnot about wanting to know a little bit more about the YJ, and yeah, so figure I'll do a quick little walkabout of the YJ. So here we go. So the YJ started out as a 1995 2.5 4-cylinder AX5, Dana 30, Dana 35, you know, whatever size tires it had on it. Let's see, cause it still runs. The factory size spare here, 215 75 15. So it went through some changes through the years. Originally was my dad's Jeep. Well, originally it was somebody else's, then my dad bought it. And my dad bought it, it was stock, 110,000 miles, something like that. We then put a 3-inch body lift on it, and some 33s on some of the Canyon wheels. And then we ended up getting an 8.8 for it. Then we did a ZZ4 350 carbureted crate motor in it with a 5-speed out of a, I think it was an 89 Chevrolet truck. Then eventually did a 4-inch spring lift. Then I got it from him. Once I got it from him, I kept it the same way for a little while. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I got it from him, the old ZZ4 crate motor decided to backfire one time on the carburetor, and it caught fire. Not a big fire, but it did catch fire, and basically he said, I want to go fuel injection. So we did a 4.8 LS motor. I think it's out of an 03 Tahoe. And then it's still the same 5-speed, same 8.8 rear that he had. And then I got it, drove it like that for a little bit. And I had another YJ that had a 5.3 8.8 rear, you know, and some 35s. And I've always wanted to do this swap that I've done to this one. I said, well, I got rid of it. I said, I'm gonna keep this one, because it does have some sentimental values. So with that, it is what it has become today. So it is still a 1995 YJ factory frame. Still got all the old, what is that, butterscotch interior. Even runs the back seat, all the factory stuff. The dome light actually does work. It does have air conditioning, and the compressor locked up, so otherwise the air conditioning does work. So it is, you know, soft top. I do have a hard top, hard doors for it as well. So what became of it now is, like I said, it is a LS swapped 4.8. Let me see if I can, just nothing special. Just the old 4.8 LS. I like that I kept the factory jack over there. It's kind of interesting. The hood light, if it's plugged up, it does work. I don't know why I have it unplugged, probably from last time I had the hood up for a little bit. Just an old eBay aluminum radiator. Do run a clutch fan on it. Obviously you can see the AC condenser down in there, or right here at the front, and then the trans cooler at the bottom. So what we end up doing with it, I knew I wanted to stretch it, knew I wanted to do some big old 8 lug stuff, and I happened to have a Turbo 400 and a 205 transfer case. It was already LS swapped. I said, man, I want a Chevrolet Dana 60. I just want to do all that. So it has a Chevrolet Kingpin Dana 60. The front, it is old used stuff. Nothing special, nothing new, except for I think the front ring gear in it, and then I rebuilt the kingpins. Other than that, nothing new. Front leaf springs are out of a 78 Wagoneer. Got some old Barnes shackles because the caster on it was tilted really far back, and I had factory shackles on it. So what I wound up doing there to get the caster back and keep it on factory perch on the center section is, you can see right there, I drilled the bolt up a little bit, like 1.25 inches, and I went 1 inch longer in shackles, so therefore it kept the same height. Got some old used reservoir shocks, Fox shocks from a buddy. But there's no wedges, no nothing. It is laying on the factory pumpkin. I did not want to do a shackle reversal. My personal preference is it worked the way it was. Why change it? I know some people say it's better, some people say it's not. Everybody has their opinions, but I chose to leave it like this. Steering, I bought some old high steer arm kits. Don't even know who made them, from somebody off Marketplace. And I measured it out. Got some 7/8 Heims and a piece of aluminum. Made my own steering tie bar and drag link. And if you look at both of them, they are pretty well flat. There's a little bit down on the drag link. And you can see the old beat up, ugly, nasty Dana 60 pumpkin in it. How low that 5.3 or 4.8 LS motor oil pan hang. I do have to get a different oil pan for it because it is hanging pretty low. On the rear is a 03 14 bolt, so it runs disc brakes. Same thing, I just kind of stuck it in there, welded it in. Oh man, you talking about a rear end that fought the crap out of it. Every bolt I've took out of this thing had to be hammer drilled or impact driver, whatever you want to call it, them slap hammers and stuff. So it's got all new cover bolts, all new brake lines, new rotors, calipers are done. Yes, it's just a 03 14 bolt. As far as what helps with the stretch, I didn't want to run a fuel cell, and though one day it's going to happen, Moto-Built Genrite stretch tanks, man, they're expensive. So what I did is I took and added about 5 inches of square tubing to the rear. So the frame tubing is 2.5 by 4, and good luck finding a piece of that. You can find 2.5 by 4.5. You can find 2 by 3, 2 by 4. So I ended up just getting a 4 by 4, and I split it. Took a plasma cutter to it, split it, narrowed it down, made it 2.5 by 4. Inside the old frame, when I cut the back of it off, I took some 1/8 inch plate, put up in there, welded it, kind of boxed it, and then slipped that tube over top of it, welded the seam of it, wet rich up inside of there, and welded it before I capped the end of it with that 3/8 plate. Then I re-drilled it all and moved the spring bushing to the back. Now I got some boomerang shackles, and obviously running some XJ factory style leaves. I did have the XJ leaves until being stupid, no anti-wrap on it, and bent them. So you've probably seen that in another video. But anyway, it allowed me to move, by doing this right here, allowed me to move the factory tank back. Kept the factory tank, factory sending unit, factory all that, even the factory fill location, minus the hose clamps and the kinked up hoses. You do have to fill it slow. I did put a piece of C-channel back in here on the back side of where the factory tank actually mounted, and I still have about 1 inch I can move that rear end back before it gets into the tank. So it caused me to have to notch the tub out right here. It kind of looks a little funny. My wife gets on to me about my spare a little bit. Some people say it's funny, but in the end, that would look funny without the spare. So I'd rather talk about the goofy looking spare. It's running just an old cheap dual exhaust, Dynamax bullets on it. 1310 front dry shaft, a 1350 double carbon with a 1410 on the rear axle. That dry shaft was built local The front one is still the factory to the Jeep, oddly enough. Because I was able to move the front forward a little bit, and where we placed the motor and all this stuff at one time, and all that big bunch of stuff, you know. Still retains the factory 1310 front drive shaft. Wheels, 17-inch KMC. Love those wheels. A couple things I like about the wheels, really. One is just the design. Two is these holes right here. Most other wheels of a beadlock don't have these holes, and obviously water and mud puddles into this right here, and it don't come out, where these here allow 90% of it to drain. I do like that. Rear shocks, man. When I tell you this thing was a budget build, it was a budget build. So the wheels and tires cost more than everything else I put into it. Rear shocks are still running the same shocks of a Super Lift that we bought 12 years ago. They ain't got a whole lot of rebound or whatever or cushion left in them, but on the frame side, they're still mounted in the factory location on the frame. On the axle, they're way back there. I used a set of TJ bump stops, oddly enough, for where the factory YJ bump stop went. There should be one bolt hole here and one here. Bolted it in there, bought these old things off Marketplace, and they work great. When it bottoms out, the tire has maybe a 1/4 inch from the tub. Front also does really good. When the shock bottoms out, bump stop hits the pad, and the tire straight, you can't get your pinky in here. Obviously, if you turn it, you can see what happens. It hits here, and it hits back here, especially when it's articulated. Front bumper, still the factory front bumper. I took, and you know, the license plate holes and all that stuff that's on them, I took on this side, just inside to one of the holes that's right here, and the edge of the slotted license plate hole, and that's where I cut it at the same angle it was factory, so it would have been back out about right here. Measured the same amount on this side, so that way it still kind of retained the bumper. Winch, nobody likes steel cable anymore, but hey, it still works. Mile marker hydraulic winch. It is hydraulic driven, runs off the power steering pump. I ain't seen it stall out yet in low. High, I've seen it stall out, but low, I mean, the Jeep ain't been able to hold itself back. I ain't seen it stall yet in low. I mean, I'm sure it would, but I haven't found it yet. A little bit of underneath. So it's running, again, it's running the old LS motor. You can see the old torque converter here from where I had a transmission rebuild. Turbo 400. That is actually Cadillac converters, and no, they're not gutted. I kept the Cadillac converters. Well, I took it to an exhaust shop to get some of these pipes made. The guy said, "Do you want to leave the Cadillac converters?" I was like, yeah, because I drive it on the road, so it's got to have them in the state of North Carolina. Came with it, it's got to have it, so I kept them. Skid plate's been hacked up, all the pieces from the old 241C that used to hang down here when it had the Dana 30 to now the 205 over there. I do got a piece of metal in there I got to put over that. You can see the anti-wrap up in there that I did install. Going back, gets really close to the exhaust, and obviously the dry shaft and so on. You can see where the shocks are kind of hanging there. Yeah, nothing special. I did put the tran cooler up in here, and if you watch the video of a Windrock trip when the dry shaft came out of it and tore it up, that's why now the trans cooler's up in front of the radiator. It appears, now that I got you with me, we are missing a body mount bolt. Uh-oh, missing a body mount bolt. So, yeah, all right. Now, as far as back to the old LS swap, it's got a painless wiring harness to it. Computer was flashed by PCM for Less here in North Carolina. Over 10 years ago. So still runs good, still runs just fine. Factory GM computer, truck intake or Tahoe intake. so on. Brake lines for this is interesting. A company called Inline Tube on the internets. So I bought the whole steel brake line kit, the entire brake line kit for the rear, because when I got the rear it was rusted up and didn't have nothing. So I bought a brake line kit for a 2003 2500, front and rear. The front just so happened, other than an adapter, just so happened the lines are well long enough for everything this thing will articulate. I think they're like 22 or 23 inches long. So well enough more than this thing will articulate. What else we got? Inside, let's go inside. So with the 205 comes a JB Customs twin stick. I did have to make a little box to mount it, to raise it up, because it tries to hit the tail end of the transfer case. So it'll run front dig, whatever you want to call it, so on. The old winter shifter, I cut out the cup holder and so on, because this is where I want it to sit, and I don't know, I just like to try to retain some of the factory stuff. So the shifter goes down in here. I don't know what I was down in there, but shifter cable, and drilled a hole through the bottom of that. So kind of bolted it in, made my own little stand, and that's where the shifter sits. What else? Got a glow shift transmission temperature, Carolina Metal Masters grab handles. The brakes suck. They stop it. Pedal about touched the floor. I got to get a different master cylinder. I keep putting that off, but that's got to happen. They stop it, and they stop it fine. They'll almost skid front tires anyway. At least that's where all the weight's transferred. Haven't had a problem with it holding it back, going downhill, or anything of that nature to this day, but eventually I got to get a better master cylinder to get more brake pedal feel back in it. But overall, that is the YJ in itself. Again, it ain't special. It ain't a big money build, but it is mine, right? So we talk about good old West Virginia. Talk about budget builds. Man, just a quick rundown. You know, though I got the Jeep with the LSRD in it, so that part, you know, I'm not counting in what I did to it. But I got a great deal on the tires back before COVID pricing really hit. I think I got $2,500 in all 4 tires. I got just under $2,000 in all 4 rims. Bought lug nuts off of lug nut guys on the internet. The front shocks, used Reservoir Fox shocks I got from a buddy of mine for 50 bucks. Brake lines, 120. Transmission, I bought a bunch of stuff one time from somebody, and then I sold parts of it and gave a motor away and so on. So if I had to say in the transmission, I probably got $250 in buying it, $500 in rebuilding it. I think I gave $600 for that round pattern 205 transfer case. A couple hundred for some adapters, off-road design clock and ring, advanced adapter stuff, and a 203 adapter, because man, the Turbo 400 to 205 adapters are hard to find. $200 in the rear. I think I gave $120 for the rear springs. The front springs I think were the same from a guy. I think I may have given him $100 for the front ones. Whatever boomerang shackles are from Barnes. I got the metal that I made the frame extension with out of a scrap pile, I think, at Race City Steel here in Mooresville. I don't think I gave him $15 for it. For a piece of tubing long enough to do that, and I still have a bunch left over. Yeah, I mean, rear drive shaft costs a crap ton, which I didn't understand why, but it did. You get it. You could probably get a better deal going to Adams or Tom Woods. I know we bought an Adams for the JK. But yeah, I got over $1,000 in that rear shaft. Didn't get it, but okay. 488 gears. It used to be 410. Now it's 488 gears because 410 at 4.8 just don't have a lick of power for at 197 to ratio low range 205. Front, I put a old torque locker in it, and the rear is I think it's a Yukon. I can't remember. I really can't remember. So a couple $100 in those. The mile marker hubs, Facebook Marketplace for $75, I think. So yeah, I mean, minus the wheels and tires, ain't a lot of money in it. You know, they're $4,500 in wheels and tires. So you can do a good budget build if you want to. Just don't price your labor. But it works good. Like I say, the old Jeep works pretty good. I got the key here. It starts right up. So that's it in a nutshell. All right, so like I say, that's pretty well it. Oh, I do have a tablet holder. See that little thing right there? That's where my tablet holder goes on. That's part that holds the tablets in the back. So when we are out trail riding. But with that being said, anything else you want to ask about, know about, talk about, feel free to comment. My wife reads them. She does get on to me because I don't respond quick enough. She, like I say, she's been asking for this one for a while, so I figure, hey, might as well knock it out. But yeah, if you want to know any more about it, feel free to ask. I will tell you everything that I can. It may not be right, but it's going to be what I know is on this thing. But that being said, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share, and see you on the next video.